Namaste. I'm Nikita. Thank you so much for watching this video about self-love. I'm wearing red today because we're going to be talking all about love. Now, we often think about loving others, loving our friends, our family, our partners, our children, our parents, our pets. But how much do we think about loving ourselves? In this video, you are going to learn my system for self-love. It's going to be broken down into 4 stages. You may wish to get a notebook or your journal in order to make notes. So the first thing to understand is, what is self-love? Now, in order to really break this down, I believe self-love comes from within. And what I mean by that is it's about going on a journey. And I use that word journey because that's what my brand is, based on Journey with Nikita. So it's about going on a journey to understand yourself, first of all, and then rekindle a relationship with yourself. And it's crazy to think that we live with ourselves for our whole lives, and actually many of us don't even know who we are. I get people who are approaching retirement age come to me and say, I don't know who I am. I feel lost. Now that I'm no longer going to be working, I don't have a sense of purpose. And this is quite common because throughout our lives, our attention is focused externally. So what we're doing is looking outside of ourselves. We're studying different subjects. We're observing people, animals, the world around us. We're learning about how to navigate through this world. But what we don't always do is go inwards. Now, most people only go inwards when something happens to them, like a tragedy or a trauma, unfortunately. Because what this does is this external event hits them, and suddenly they don't necessarily have the tools to be able to cope and to be able to handle this situation. And they try to lean on people, but it doesn't work. They try to reach out externally to seek help, but nothing seems to help them. And so when they look everywhere else and nothing can support them, that's when they turn their attention inwards. And so most people, not everyone, but most people go through an awakening of some kind after a trauma or a tragedy. Now, my circumstance was quite different. I grew up and I had a wonderful childhood. I couldn't have asked for more. I had very loving parents. I had sisters. I had a big network of relatives around me, lots and lots of friends. I didn't have any problems at all in my life. Yet when I was 23, I decided that I would like to go to an ashram in India. And a lot of people were like, why do you need to go to an ashram? And I said, well, I don't need to, I want to. And they found that really baffling. Like, why would you want to put yourself through that? Like, if you don't know, an ashram is like a monastery. So it's a place which is very secluded. In my case, it was on a mountain in South India, in Kerala. And it's a place where there is no technology. I mean, when I was 23, there weren't smartphones anyway. You weren't allowed to take your laptop. You weren't allowed anything, any gadgets, basically. You had to sleep in dormitory style accommodation. You could only shower with cold water, and that too, it was monitored how long you could be in there for. And it wasn't a shower, by the way, it was a bucket and a jug. It was a very rigid routine. You had to wake up at 4 a.m, meditate, there was a lot involved. And probably the hardest thing was the food was very restricted. So it was a sattvic diet, which means pure food. So there was no salt, no sugar, no spices even. No, obviously no meat, no onions, no garlic, no alcohol, goes without saying. So it was a very disciplined regime, and I decided to stay there for 1 month. So the minimum amount of time was 3 days, and then the maximum was 1 month. And then after that, you could decide to stay there as a member of staff if you wanted to sort of be a volunteer and help. But my schedule didn't allow for that. So what I did is I went 1 year for 3 days just to suss it out and make sure that I actually would be able to hack it. And then the following year, I went back for a month. That was in 2009. And I remember when I was there, a lot of people asked me, why are you here? What's happened to you? And I was really like stunned by this question. What do you mean, what's happened to me? Nothing has happened. And they said, well, most of us are here because we've been through some kind of trauma. And I was like, well, no, I haven't been through anything. I've had a great life so far. And then I remember one man said to me, well, what that means is you are going to go through trauma and this is preparing you. And I was like, oh, geez, thanks. That's just cheered me up kind of thing. And actually he was right, because within 3 years I went through a very major health scare and I got diagnosed with a chronic health condition. So, and the tools that I had learned at that ashram definitely had prepared me for that. So the point I'm trying to make is that people come onto this journey of spirituality, if you like, after or before some kind of negative series of events or a major thing happening in their lives. And for me, the first step in this journey is self-love. And that's why it's very important to me that I really explain to people exactly what self-love is, because I believe that this is the foundation. And some people try to accelerate onto the spiritual journey and they do lots of meditation and they do the affirmations and they go into manifesting, and all of that's great. It's fantastic. But none of it is going to really take you where you want to get to if you don't have self-love. Even manifesting will only be successful if you operate from a place of worthiness, and being worthy of manifesting your desires comes from self-love. So for me, self-love is the very first step in understanding who you are and then going further from there. So in this video, we're going to really start to look back at your childhood, because that's where self-love starts. In fact, it starts the moment you were born. Some would even argue it starts before that. But let's go from your childhood to try to identify when and where your narrative of being inadequate may have started. So I assume that you're watching this video because on some level there's a feeling within that you are not enough. You are inadequate. Now, I don't like that word and I don't want to emphasize on negative words, but I do think it's important to bring it to the forefront as we begin. And what we're going to do with that is we're going to reframe your perception of yourself. Now, when I work with clients one-to-one, I work on a process known as inner child healing. So it's going back to how they felt when they were a child and reframing that state. And it's not about just changing the circumstances, because we can't do that, as you know. But what we can do is change our perception and the state that we felt. So if we were in a state of fear, for example, as a child, if we were someone that was constantly going to our room, hiding away, being under the duvet, what we work with is not changing that. We're going to keep that because that's the reality, that's what happened, but change the state of that child. And this is based on the fact that whatever we felt back then is still in us now. So if we had fear as a child, we still have fear now. And it might be subtle now, it might not be the same. We might not go away under the duvet, but we might do it in a very subtle way. So if a work colleague, for example, is confrontational, our natural response might be flight mode, because that's what we were used to doing as a child. So we might walk off and say, oh, I'm actually going to go and get coffee, I'm going to go get some air. Now, none of that's bad, but it's just recognizing where these patterns were formed. So now I'd like you to start writing what's coming up for you now as I talk about your childhood. Can you remember the kind of state that you were in when you were, say, aged 5 to 10? Because those are the formative years where we start to really form our beliefs, and we start to really understand the world around us. And what we do is, because our world is so small at that time, we're only exposed to our family, our friends, our school, our after school clubs perhaps. Because our world is so small, we haven't got exposure. We start to assume that everybody's the way that our parents are, for example, or our friends are. So if we were treated in a way that was not good for us, we start to then form a belief that this is the way I deserve to be treated. And that's where this idea of self-worth comes in, this self-love. So as I'm saying all of this, just start to journal your thoughts, start to write down exactly what's coming up for you right now. And this process may trigger emotions. That's okay. We're in a safe space now. It's just you and I. So feel free to really express yourself, really write down whatever's coming up for you. And you don't have to write really nice sentences with perfect spelling and grammar. Just put any words down on paper, just bullet points, anything you can think of related to your past. So I'll give you a minute or two to do that. And of course, if you feel like you would like more time, then feel free to pause the video. We're now going to move on to our present. So our present circumstances, and this is possibly the most important because this is where we are right now. This is what we are living in. But I believe that you need to work backwards in order to help yourself in the present stage. So when I work with people in a group or one-to-one, we really strip back their limiting beliefs. So you'll hear me talk a lot about beliefs, and I have other videos available about this. And what we're doing is we're switching the limiting belief into an empowering one. This is so, so important in order to be able to change the way we think. So in the past, I mentioned changing our perception, changing the state of the past, whereas in the present, what we're working with is changing the way that we think. So in order to have a growth mindset, I would like you to make 2 columns in your book or your journal. On the left-hand column, my current limiting beliefs. And in the right-hand column, my empowered beliefs. And so what I would like you to do, and again, you may wish to pause the video in order to do this, write down whatever's coming up for you. What do you believe to be true? And remember, this is not you that believes it. This is the child in you. So, for example, if a child had an abusive parent growing up, they may develop a belief that all men or all women are abusive. That might become a belief. If I had a very rude teacher at school, I may develop a belief that all teachers are rude. So it's about really diving deeply. And of course, those were very simplistic beliefs. I mean, we if we were to work on this on a one-to-one basis, we would be able to really strip them back and understand exactly what they are. It doesn't even matter where they came from. Like, you don't even need to know which teacher it was or what circumstance it was. All that matters is you understanding what you believe now. It doesn't need to be what you believe. So I'd like you to really work with these two columns. So for the sake of the video moving along, we're going to actually progress, but I do encourage you to pause this and to do this exercise. And this might take quite a long time because it's very deep work. Then the third part of this sequence is embracing the future. So now that we've healed the past through changing our state, changing our perception of what happened, not so much what happened, but the way that we perceived it to happen, then we work on our present, our limiting beliefs, turning them into empowering ones. Now we're going to work on embracing the future. So by having this new awareness and new insight, you now have foresight into how your life could be in the future with this renewed frame of mind. So it doesn't mean that you're no longer going to face challenges. It doesn't mean that if you do this work, that's it, everything's going to be smooth sailing. What it means is you now have tangible tools and techniques which you can approach these situations with. You're in a much more empowered state. So this whole process, or as I call it, a journey, is a process of understanding yourself, finding yourself. Remember I said earlier, I get a lot of people that come to me and they say, I have lost myself. I don't know who I am anymore. Well, you can look at this in two ways. One is super scary, like, oh my gosh, I don't know who I am. That's making me feel really vulnerable. And the other side of that is, wow, that's really exciting actually. I'm like a blank canvas now. My children have gone off to university, they've got married, I'm going to be retiring. I'm in a really good position. So fear and excitement are just simply two sides of the same coin. So whatever crossroads that you might be going through right now in your life, recognizing that actually it's not so much a crossroads, it's more an opportunity. They say everything is a blessing in disguise. And what that means is everything that you perceive to be a challenge is actually there to help you. The universe has got your back. There's actually a book with that title. And it really is true because, if you believe in a higher power, if you believe in God or the universe or nature even, you'll know that it's not there to make life hard for you. It's not there to make you suffer. It's there to help you grow and to evolve. And so everything we go through, all our personal challenges, are to help us to grow. So I mentioned my 4-stage system. Now this is a really powerful system. That's what I've been using on myself and I'm now ready to share with you. So if you feel like you've done the pre-work, which is addressing your past, understanding your present, and then able to embrace your future with optimism and hope, you're now ready to start with my 4 stages. You may need to watch this video back again and again. It's an educational tool for you to use for your personal development. So stage 1. Stage 1 is self-care. Okay, so remember I said self-love is the very foundation of your journey. Well, self-care is the foundation of self-love. So this is prioritizing your physical, mental, and emotional well-being. Now, not many people do all 3. A lot of people go to the gym very regularly. They run, they play squash, they're very disciplined, yet they don't read books or they don't do meditation. They don't do anything for the mind, or they don't do anything for their emotional. So doing something that supports all 3 is going to serve you well. And essentially it's about taking care of yourself, your body and your mind. That's the very first step towards building your self-worth. Because the reason you might not be doing self-care right now is because you think deep down, this might be a very deep-rooted belief, I am not worthy, I don't deserve it. So going out for a walk might feel like a luxury. Going to buy yourself a new dress might feel like it's too much. It might be out of your comfort zone to do that. It might feel like you're overspending. To treat yourself to a spa day might feel like you're pushing the boat out. And that's because deep down you don't feel that you deserve it. Now, I'm not suggesting you do those things regularly. Of course, not many of us can afford to do spa days on a frequent basis, and we don't even, enjoy them. Perhaps that was just an example. But, for some people, even if it's their birthday or an anniversary or a special occasion, they feel very guilty when they treat themselves. They don't mind treating their partner or their children, but they feel very guilty treating themselves. So that's based on self-worth. So in order to help you with that, self-care tips for you. Sleep. The most important thing for self-care is sleep. And again, people compromise their sleep for other people, especially if they've got young children. Their sleep gets interrupted. But it has such a negative, in fact, detrimental effect on your health, your mood, your energy levels. You must prioritize your sleep, whether that's going to bed earlier or whether that's waking up later, or if that's incorporating naps into your day. Having 7 to 9 hours sleep is very, very important. So again, you may wish to make notes about this. Eating nutritious food is the second one. So as you know, you are what you eat. That's very, very common knowledge now. There's so much awareness now about nutrition. Eating foods that make you feel good. So for example, I have an autoimmune disease and I've been advised to eat lots of antioxidants. Now, I love blueberries and they have antioxidants in them, but blueberries are very expensive. And I'm in the UK, by the way, just to give you some context if anyone's watching this internationally. Blueberries are one of my favourite fruit, but they're just so expensive. And I'm the only person that eats them in my house. My husband doesn't eat blueberries and I don't have children. So it's just the two of us. So I could not justify spending so much on blueberries because you only get a very small amount for a very high price, or you can pay a bit more and you can have more, but then there's a chance you'll throw them away, and eating too many is not good either. So I was in a dilemma for a long time. I just didn't buy blueberries, basically. I know this is a very funny, silly example really, but it's just to give you some context when it comes to food and self-care. So I did not think that I was worthy enough. I thought, well, actually they cost £4, £5. I'm not going to pay that because I'm not deep down. Remember I said this is very deep rooted. So my conscious mind was like, you need to eat blueberries because you need it for your health. My subconscious mind was like, no, you don't deserve it. So I didn't. And then one day I was out and I was looking at them and I just thought, and this was after a lot of work on my solar plexus, a lot of this self-work that you're doing now, self-worth work. And I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to perhaps cut back on something else in life, perhaps not have that bottle of wine a week or whatever, but I am going to have blueberries. And I know that's a very simple example, but it really showed me that I was making progress because I suddenly did something for myself. Had my husband said, I'm going to share them, I definitely would have bought them. But this was about me putting myself first. Like, wow, I have to spend the money on me. And that was what was really challenging for me to do. So just tying that in with the nutritious side, sometimes you may want to buy food and you think, well, no one else in the house is going to eat it, so just leave it, or I'll just have the leftovers. A lot of women do that. A lot of mothers, they just eat last at the end of the evening. Well, actually recognizing that all of this is related to self-worth. Exercise is such a fantastic way of improving your mood. It's scientifically proven to reduce stress and boost your energy levels. And you can do any exercise that works for you, even if you have a condition like rheumatoid arthritis or fibromyalgia, for example, which restricts you. You can still go for gentle walks. You can still do very gentle weights at home. You can do a lot of exercise in a chair now. You can do chair yoga, for example, Relaxation. This is something that people really miss out on. And that's why yoga is so good, because yoga encompasses mindfulness as well as physical techniques and postures. Engaging in hobbies that you enjoy. That's another step towards self-care. So many mothers that I meet, I say, what do you do for yourself? And they say, oh no, I don't do anything. I drop my children to all these clubs, ballet, taekwondo and whatever, karate, all these things that the kids do, but they don't do anything in that time. So it's about really incorporating hobbies back into your life. Spending time in nature, it's so important. We all know the positive effects of being in nature. And, as I mentioned, I'm in the UK and we very rarely get any kind of bright days or sunshine. It's even more important to get air, to get access to daylight. So going for walks, just sitting outside, enjoying fresh air is so important. Scheduling breaks throughout the day, trying not to do too much to avoid burnout, getting up, moving around in between your meetings or patients, if you are working with patients or clients, making sure that you take time for deep breaths, doing things that make you feel relaxed and recharged, not just checking your phone and making sure that your kids are okay, but actually really checking in with yourself throughout the day. And then the last thing is, don't be afraid to ask for help. It's okay to ask for help. Ask your manager for some leeway. Ask your family members, your friends, ask your partner to do the dishwasher. Whatever it is that you need in order for you to exercise self-care, trying to prioritize that. Okay, so hopefully that's given you enough to work with for self-care. Now, stage 2 is self-respect. Now, this is a very deep subject, and I could probably do another video just about this. But in essence, it's about honouring your boundaries. So self-respect is about valuing your opinions, your beliefs, and your feelings. So it's recognising your worth and setting boundaries in order to respect your emotional well-being. So when you respect yourself, you communicate with other people how you expect to be treated. So a lot of us say, oh, but he or she treats me that way. Oh, my boss treats me that way. Well, actually, you are allowing them to treat you that way. Okay, and that's quite a hard thing to hear. A lot of people get defensive when I say that, but it's recognizing that we only get treated the way we allow ourselves to be treated. So a few tips for you are: learn to say no. Start saying no. Just practice it. Practice it on small things. Even if you're able to do it, just don't say yes to everything. Because what you can always do is say no and then go back and say, actually, do you know what? I have got a bit more free time. Actually, I can do that. I've got a bit more headspace now. It's always easier to go from a no to a yes rather than the other way around. Communicate your needs with other people. I just gave the example of ask your partner, is it all right if you do the dishwasher so that I can get off to my yoga class? Ask the question. If they say no, fine. If they don't do it when you've got back, fine. But at least ask, communicate. Surround yourself with positive people. A lot of my clients, they come to me and they say they're doing all this work on themselves, but then they go back and they're surrounded by draining people who are in victim state, and that brings them down. Try and build a new network. That doesn't mean abandon all your existing friends. It just means start to widen the people that you associate with. Like I gave an example of going to a yoga class. That's a perfect way of meeting people who are there to work on themselves. Somebody that takes out an hour a week for themselves are likely to be positive. So therefore, being in environments like that. Set healthy boundaries. That's so important. Tell your co-workers, tell your partner, tell your friends what you need from them. Don't tolerate disrespect. If somebody is disrespecting you, if you feel like you are not being treated the way that you deserve to be, speak up. And this relates to the throat chakra. The throat is all about expression. It's about expressing yourself, how you feel. You could just say it in a very non-confrontational way, like, actually, I didn't like the way you said this, or I didn't like the way that you made me feel in that moment. Is it okay if we talk about this? Is it all right if we address this? It's done in a very pure way with good intentions. When you do something with good intentions, you very rarely then get negative consequences, because the other person can feel that actually you don't mean to be confrontational. A lot of people, what they do is they suppress it, and then what that does is that builds up blockages, and it basically reaffirms to your solar plexus, which is the place of self-worth, oh yeah, see, I'm not worthy. So what happens is you're reaffirming, you're giving evidence to the subconscious mind that, see, that person was rude to you. I told you you were not worthy. I told you you were not clever enough. I told you you were not attractive enough. And what happens if we speak up is we actually put principles in place for ourselves. So the two that we've talked about so far are self-care and self-respect. I'm actually going to pause here because I would like you to really take the time to digest this, to work on this, and to process these two. There's a lot of things that we've discussed, and I want you to be able to go away and journal and reflect on these two and what they mean for you and what's coming up for you. And I will make a separate video about the other two stages. I mentioned there's a 4-stage process in achieving a sense of self-love, but I don't want to rush through it. I want you to take your time, really understand, I want you to start living this. It's not about theoretically going in and understanding, oh, this is self-love, this is self-respect. It's about actually being it, being an example of it. So for that, it takes a lot of time, effort, and perseverance. So I hope you've enjoyed this video so far. Please share your comments, your feedback, reach out to me, connect with me. You can contact me on social media, you can email me, whatever it is, and just let me know what's going on for you. I like to be part of people's journey, and so I would love to hear from you and have your feedback on this video. And then I will be back in another video to talk about the remaining 2 stages. Thank you for now. Namaste.